CBC Montreal, broadcasting throughout Quebec.
The CBC Evening News. Newswatch with Dennis Trudeau.
Hello. Premier Jacques Parizeau is on vacation, but even so, he's managed to bring the political waters at home to a rolling boil, a boil that could scald him and his sovereignty movement. All thanks to a story that Parizeau said voting yes to sovereignty is like lobsters going into the boiling water. There's no turning back. La Presse says Parizeau used that comparison at a meeting with a group of ambassadors in Ottawa. Julie Van Dusen reports those ambassadors found themselves in hot water this morning.
This morning at the home of the ambassador of Spain, all 15 ambassadors in Canada to the European Union were meeting. A business meeting, but also a chance to sort out how to respond to the reports about Jacques Parizeau's comments. The Spanish ambassador read a statement on behalf of his fellow ambassadors.
That Mr. Parizeau did not make the remarks attributed to him.
The brouhaha is over this secret memo from the Department of Foreign Affairs. The memo refers to a June 13th luncheon meeting between Jacques Parizeau and the ambassadors to the European Union. The Dutch ambassador Jan Fiedelaars is quoted in the memo describing Parizeau as a skillful and cynical politician. He went on to say that in response to a question on the upcoming referendum, Mr. Parizeau noted that what was most important was obtaining a majority yes vote from Quebecers. After that, he said, they will be like lobsters dropped into boiling water. Which one is he? The Dutch ambassador, the man with his hand up, refuses now to comment. But last night he told CBC Radio that Parizeau never made the remarks likening Quebecers to lobsters. The leaked memo has caused the ambassadors no end of grief. By nature, they strive to steer clear of domestic politics.
Because we think it's important to state the neutral position of the group of the European ambassadors on that issue.
The leak of the document by the federal government was likely designed to try to embarrass Jacques Parizeau, but it may also rebound against Ottawa itself. No ministers or federal officials would comment, but leaking the document leaves the impression the federal government is prepared to use even the private comments of foreign ambassadors in its battle against Quebec sovereigntists. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, the lobster comments are certainly making waves here in Quebec. The PQ government denies Parizeau ever made the remarks, while federalists and sovereigntists are using the story to try to score political points. Christina Lawand reports.
It's a curious analogy, Quebecers as crustaceans, leaping into the scalding waters of sovereignty. And even more curious, the alleged source of the metaphor, the man who's supposed to be selling the sovereignty option. The premier wasn't around to offer an explanation. He's vacationing in France. But his second-in-command rushed back from a diplomatic mission in Mexico to formally deny the comment was ever made.
Nous nions formellement et avec une démarche intellectuelle impeccable.
Bernard Landry says he checked his sources and he invited journalists to do the same.
I have more confidence in you, in yourselves and in you, Mr. Saint Laurent, to draw the conclusion than in myself.
But Parizeau's opponents were quick to draw their own conclusions.
Mr. Parizeau is always saying the truth.
They wasted little time in making lobster bisque out of the whole thing.
It's too far-fetched to be even invented. Mr. Parizeau, I'm sure, said it because he's like that. He likes to compare.
I agree with him. I think that we will be in a situation of a lobster. And like you know, we have one purpose with a lobster, to be sure that it dies.
Meanwhile, the yes forces were smelling conspiracy.
Ottawa know very well that we make some good points since some weeks or some months.
It might be a strategy of the no camp to try to pump up a story around that because whenever you have nothing to propose, the only strategy left is to try to attack the credibility of those who propose something.
But the timing of this lobster tale isn't the best for Jacques Parizeau. He's to convince a majority of Quebecers to take the big plunge by the end of the year. Then the last thing he needs is a painful analogy. One that can be used again and again. Christina Lewan, CBC News, Montreal.
It's 5 years today since the Quebec Police Force stormed the Mohawk barrier at Oka, leading to the death of one police officer and sparking the infamous summer standoff between natives and police and eventually the armed forces. Today, the Mohawk of Kanesatake marked the anniversary by marching through the village of Oka under the Mohawk colors. Genevieve Beauchemin reports.
Listening to the sounds of July 11th, 1990 was a painful reminder to these people. Many of them were here during the Oka crisis, and they say it's something they'll never forget.
Well, we're walking to show that we didn't forget what happened either. Everybody seems to forget that, when the SQ came here, they didn't carry no roses in their hands. They came here to kill us. And we just stood up for ourselves, and we're marking a day that we stood up.
We don't need your Constitution.
The march began in the Pines, near the land.